Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the St. Petersburg Science Festival. Right now, we have with us Mackenzie and Natalie, virus hunters, and we are joining them to explore the world of viruses. So thank you, Natalie and Mackenzie. Take it away.
Welcome, everybody. We're so happy that you joined us today, and we're going to learn about viruses and living things and how they work in our oceans. So first of all, we'd like to introduce ourselves. My name is Mackenzie Kerr, and I'm a lab manager and outreach coordinator for Dr. Maya Breitbart at the University of South Florida College of Marine Science. My job is to do research in the lab and create fun activities like the one we're going to do today for people like you. I'm a scientist and also an artist, and so I actually drew all of the things you're going to see today, and so I'm really excited for you all to see it. Fun fact about me, I love anime, and so I love to share a fun fact, and Natalie will also share a fun fact about herself. Today I have with me Natalie Sawaya, a PhD candidate in our lab, and she's going to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. So I work in the same lab as Mackenzie does, and I study viruses that infect bacteria, and we'll talk a little bit more about those later. What's really interesting about the viruses that I study is that they're so tiny, even for viruses, that the normal tools we use to study them aren't good enough. So we have to find new ways to better study them because we pretty much find them everywhere. A little fun fact about me is je parle français, which means I speak French.
That's awesome. So today we're going to learn more about viruses from our virus expert, Natalie, and I'm going to ask her some questions so we can learn more. So first of all, what are viruses, Natalie?
So viruses are microscopic, which means they're really small, and usually you'll need a microscope to see them if you can see them at all. They're also infectious, meaning they have to enter the living cell of different organisms so that they can multiply and make more copies. The living cell that they multiply in, that's their host.
They sound like little ninjas.
Yeah, they are.
They sound cool. What do they look like?
So they actually come in a lot of different shapes and sizes, but we do have a model to give you an idea. So here is a very large model of a virus, and the outside of the virus, that is a protein coat, and it helps keep the very important part of the virus, which is its genetic material on the inside. Do you know what genetic material is, Mackenzie?
I think so, but I'd rather have you explain it a little more.
So you know how we have DNA, and that lets us know what kind of eye color or hair color or how tall we are?
Yes.
Our DNA is our genetic material. And so viruses can have DNA, but some of them have something that's really similar to DNA, but kind of has a different shape to it, and that's known as RNA. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, viruses look kind of like little spiders.
Yeah, I can see that with the tails and the legs, but not all viruses will have those tails and legs. Like we said, they can come in a lot of different shapes and sizes.
That's cool. I hope we get to see some examples of those later on. So I know that humans can get viruses because all we've been hearing about in the news recently is coronavirus this, coronavirus that. But what about plants and animals?
That's true. Plants and animals can get viruses just like humans can. And even bacteria. Like I said, the ones that I study, they actually infect just bacteria. So everything can get infected by a virus.
If they get the virus inside them, do they always get sick?
That's a really good question. Not necessarily. We may think of viruses as always things that cause bad sickness, like the coronavirus, for example, but some viruses might do no harm. And in fact, sometimes we can use viruses to do some good things as well.
Wow. I really can't wait to see an example of that because I can't imagine how viruses could be good after everything I've seen in the news. So why do viruses even infect living things at all?
So viruses can't make more copies of themselves unless they have a host. So that's why they have to go inside a living cell, and then they control that cell system and reprogram it so the cell is forced to make more copies of them, even if it might not want to.
That's pretty cool. So why do scientists even look for viruses if they aren't causing any problems?
So it's really important to understand what kind of viruses are around us and which ones are causing problems, which ones might be useful, and what the role of each virus in the ecosystem really is. So you kind of want to get a good survey of all the viruses that are around to better understand what each one of them is doing. In fact, the fact that scientists had been studying coronaviruses and certain viruses that were really closely related to the coronavirus for many, many years is why they were able to develop a vaccine so quickly.
Science can be really cool, can help us out a lot. So you know a ton about viruses. I'm really glad you came today. And I really hope that we can play a game together. Do you want to play a game together?
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Let's do it.
Awesome. So let's learn about more viruses in coastal environments. So we're going to play a game called Find My Host. And as we learned, all living things can be infected by viruses. And so we're going to use a worksheet to find a host organism that best matches the description that we're going to give you. And using an interactive website, we can click on a star to reveal each virus that infects the host. And so first, let me go ahead and share what our interactive website looks like. And so you all can see this. And so I actually drew this image, so I'm really excited for you all to see it today. And we have a coloring page that goes along with it that you all can print out and color at home. And we'll talk about that a little more later. First, we're in this environment. There's a coastal environment in the ocean, and we want to learn about what is in seawater. So if we just click on this little icon here, it'll pop up a description.
Okay, so we're going to learn about some fun facts about viruses in seawater. So did you know that viruses are actually the most abundant biological thing in our oceans?
I didn't know that.
So every time you go in the ocean, there's tons of viruses around you, but most of them aren't going to hurt you at all. In fact, in just one drop of water, there's about 500,000 viruses, but most of them are actually infecting bacteria.
That makes me feel safer.
Yeah, exactly. And so you don't have to worry about those at all. So the viruses that infect bacteria, we call them bacteriophage, or just phage for short. And again, viruses are very specific in who they infect. So if they're infecting bacteria, they're not going to be infecting us humans. So you can feel pretty safe swimming in our oceans. And sometimes they can even help you.
Can we have an example of that? Because I don't know if I believe you.
Okay, so just like for viruses, there can be good and bad viruses. The same thing is true for bacteria. They can be good and bad bacteria. And so we're going to give an example of a bad bacteria and our phage hero virus that's going to save the day. So here we have a little picture of our coral reefs. And we'll kind of open up the screen so you
there
can
you go.
see better. Yeah. Okay, so here we have a picture of our coral reefs, and coral reefs are really important. Why do you think they're so important in the marine habitat, Mackenzie?
Well, I know when I go diving or swimming on a reef, there's lots of fish around and some other really cool living things. So maybe they protect them.
Yeah, they provide a lot of protection and habitat, and a lot of fish like to come by, and they keep the ecosystem healthy. So we want our corals to be healthy so that the oceans are healthy. Well, unfortunately, we have some bad bacteria that can sit on the coral and cause the tissue of the coral to start to die. And that's really sad, and we don't like that. Luckily, we have our phage hero. Remember, phage infects bacteria. So this phage is going to actually infect and kill that bad bacteria and save the coral so that they're nice and healthy. So that's a really good example of how we can use viruses to help us fight those bad bacteria.
Okay, I guess I believe you now.
There you go.
That's awesome. So if you want to learn more about the phage hero activity, we actually have a link to a paper that was published from our lab on our website. So you can learn more examples of good viruses out there. So let's actually try a description from our worksheet to figure out some examples of viruses in our oceans. We'll back up our interactive website. Here we go. All right. So let's try this one. This large creature is known for being very friendly and slow moving. So everyone think about this. It has a large, flat, round tail and a pig-like snout. What do you think it could be?
Well, I'm studying the picture really carefully. And, I'm noticing that the manatee has a really large tail that looks like a big paddle.
You're right. Good
Yay!
job. Hopefully you all thought the same thing. And if you didn't, that's okay. Now you know. So we were looking for the manatee. I've seen them a lot. Have you seen them before?
Yeah, I've seen them when I'm kayaking, and they are pretty slow moving, aren't they?
Yeah, sometimes we even see them right off the side of the seawall here on campus.
Yeah, that's really fun.
That's cool. So Florida manatees have, first let's click the little star. Let's figure out what viruses infect them. So Florida manatees have great immune systems, but when their bodies become weak due to cold stress in winter, they can be infected by a papillomavirus. And papillomaviruses cause wart-like tumors to grow on the body, just like the picture you're seeing right now. And so have you ever had a wart before?
Yeah, I did not like it. It was very annoying.
Yeah, so I think that the manatees probably feel the same way. They're just kind of annoying and might not really hurt them that much, but it does be a little annoying sometimes.
Yeah, so it's just more so a bother, not necessarily bad or good.
Yeah, it's just there. So the manatees can be infected by this papillomavirus, and it looks like this under a microscope. Really, really zoomed in.
Yes, so these ones don't have any tails.
No, right. So they look like little circles almost.
Yeah, so that shows you all viruses can be pretty different from one another.
They also look like they could be kind of soft to me, like little puffballs.
Yeah.
But I don't know what they actually would feel like. They're too small to know.
Do the tumors stay forever, or can they go away?
I think that the warts can kind of disappear and come and go depending on how bad the manatee is stressed out in their environment.
Okay.
So we got to make sure to be really nice to manatees. Next time you see one, just make sure to wave to it, say hello, and don't forget, you're not supposed to harass them. Just say hello at a good distance, and they might even smile at you back.
Okay, good advice, Mackenzie.
That's a good point, right? Awesome. So let's try a harder one. What do you think?
Okay, yeah, I like that idea. I have an idea. Okay, so this is a small animal, and it drifts with the currents, and it eats tiny single-celled plants.
Okay. Let's see. It's small, so that kind of narrows down our choices a bit, right? It's not going to be a manatee again. That's way too big. It drifts with the currents. So I think about when I'm swimming in the ocean, I kind of get pulled away by a current a little bit. It's usually at the surface, so probably at the surface somewhere. And it sounds like it's going to be a plankton. And I know from SpongeBob that plankton looks like this guy here.
That's right. That's a copepod, and copepods are tiny zooplankton. So do you know what the difference between a zooplankton and a phytoplankton is?
I think so. Can you describe it?
So zooplankton are like tiny animals, while phytoplankton are more like plants.
Okay.
Yeah. So they can photosynthesize and make their own energy, but the zooplankton actually have to eat the phytoplankton, just like most animals.
I like copepods. I know I've seen them under a microscope before, and they swim really fast.
They do swim really fast under a microscope.
They're cool, and they're very tiny. So this image is definitely way blown up of what they would actually look like in the ocean.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. So let's figure out what viruses infect copepods.
Okay, so even though we talked about how tiny copepods are, the viruses that infect them are even smaller. These are known as CRES DNA viruses, and they can be about 400,000 times smaller than the copepods themselves.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine at all. And in fact, for scientists, they have to use really big and cool microscopes and zoom in very far so that we can even see them.
That's cool. So these are actually pictures of that virus?
Yep, those are actually pictures of that virus.
Wow, that must be very, very zoomed in.
Yep.
That's really cool. Did you know our lab actually discovered this virus a few years ago?
No way, that's so cool.
Yeah, that actually makes us the virus hunters.
That makes sense.
Okay, cool. So our lab actually searches for viruses in marine and freshwater environments and organisms before they cause big problems in the environment. So right now we have researchers looking for viruses in seagrasses, seawaters, and aquatic plants found in the Florida Springs.
Well, I think that's pretty much enough for today, right? We have to let them try out the activity for themselves. So,
I guess.
how can they find our website?
So let's go ahead and pull up our information so you guys. Here's a slide that has a QR code that if you can't wait any longer, you want to try right this second, you can go ahead and scan it and save that or bookmark that page for yourselves. We also have the actual website link, so you can type that in as well, or take a screenshot, take a picture of it so you don't forget. And remember, we mentioned that we have coloring pages. So we really, really want to see those coloring pages. We want to see how you color our beautiful scene. And so we want you to send those to us via email, and my email is up on the screen, and that's burrowsm@usf.edu. Or you can hashtag us at USF Virus Hunters on social media, and whatever social media you have, we'll try to find it out there and make sure we get some joy out of seeing your beautiful coloring images.
Yeah, we're really excited to see those photos.
Yeah.
So today we learned a lot, and there's a lot of viruses out there, and there's so much more to learn even for us about viruses. But we really just wanted to remind you guys that while all plants and animals can get infected by viruses, they're not always causing disease or sickness, though they sometimes do. And if we study as many viruses as possible, we can help protect the organisms and these marine habitats from getting too sick or even spreading that virus. So that's why it's really important to be a virus hunter.
Yeah, so we're going to be ready for questions whenever you guys have them ready. And we just wanted to thank you all so much for joining us today. We know it's a really fun school day, usually in person, and we can't wait to see you guys and give you our stickers.
So that you can be virus hunters too.
Yeah, we want you all to be virus hunters. We have stickers for you next time we can do an in-person event. Or if you even email me, I might be able to send you some as well. You teachers out there that want some, we can send you them in the mail. So again, thank you guys so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see your coloring pages. Don't forget to send them to us. We're really excited about that.
I can't wait to see the coloring pages too. I'm going to search that. I'm going to be a hashtag hunter.
Hashtag virus hunter.
Yes. So we have our first question. We have two questions. Oh my gosh, they're coming in hot. Okay, so first question. How many viruses harm marine wildlife?
That's a really good question, and it's kind of really hard to just give a number on them, and it also depends who you're talking about. So there's a lot of viruses, for example, like we talked about, most of them infect bacteria, and there's a lot of bacteria in the ocean. So in that aspect, yeah, a lot of viruses are hurting those bacteria, but not all those bacteria are good. So sometimes we like that too.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it's really hard to come up with like a specific number, especially because we don't know a lot about what's out there. And that's why we are virus hunters, because we want to see what else is out there. And so we have to keep studying to really get a good idea of what those numbers could be.
Thank you for that answer. Okay, next question. Is red tide a virus or a bacteria?
Really good
question.
That's
a really good question. And it's very tricky because it's actually neither a virus or a bacteria. It's actually a dinoflagellate, which is like a phytoplankton, like we
so one of those
about.
Plant-like plankton.
Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that is an interesting thing to study is the viruses that could infect red tide. And we have some more information about that on
the interactive
website if you guys are interested to learn more about that virus and its importance.
Yeah, so actually one of the descriptions you have to look for on the interactive website is for Carenia brevis, which is the dinoflagellate that causes red tide. And so check it out and learn some more information. Our lab is currently working on finding viruses that infect that red tide cell. So,
because that would be a really good example of a virus that could kill a bad guy in the ocean that we really want to be able to be better at controlling.
Yeah, to help out.
Right. Okay, cool. Thank you. So another question, what about pool water? Does pool water have viruses?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Pretty much, especially because we swim in them and we have viruses because we have bacteria on our bodies. So we have viruses that infect those bacteria in our bodies. So for sure, pool water has some viruses because we use them so much.
It's nothing to be afraid of. like we said, there's just a lot of viruses out there in the world, just like swimming around in bacteria. Bacteria cannot always cause you harm. And so there's always bacteria on you all the time. And so you have to thank those bacteria because they're keeping you healthy. And same thing, viruses aren't always doing us harm. Sometimes they're killing those bad bacteria in the water as well. So no problem. You can still swim in your pool. You can still swim in the ocean and have no fear.
Right. Okay. So next question. Why do the viruses cause disease and sickness? Do that?
So that's a good question. And it mostly just happens because they're trying, like we said, when they infect a cell and they're trying to make more copies of themselves, oftentimes when they escape, they cause those cells to burst open. And when that happens in your body is not really happy about that. And so that is what causes you to get sick. It's really just the viruses aren't paying attention to their host.
They're just trying to survive.
They're just trying to survive. And then it's just that reaction that they have in our cells that causes us to get sick.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So you said that your lab has discovered viruses. How do you actually know when you found a new one?
We did talk about how small they were, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's also a really great question. So it can be tricky sometimes to figure out if we found something new or if we just found something closely related, but pretty much everybody who is a virus hunter or studies viruses, every time they find something in an environment, they put it in this big database that we all share and all the scientists. So that's really cool.
It's like our Google.
Yeah, it's like kind of our virus Google, I guess that's a really good way to put it. And so when we get new viruses, we'll look at their genetic material, like we talked about, their DNA and their RNA, and we'll compare it to this virus Google and see if somebody else has found something similar to that. And after that, we kind of have to really make sure it's something new. We kind of want to find that virus, see if we can grow it in the lab and do some more tests on it after that.
And we take pictures on these really fancy, very expensive microscopes that
As
zoom
big as-
so
yeah.
far in that you can see these viruses. Because like we said, they're very, very tiny. You can't use a regular microscope that you have at home or even at your school to see them. You have to have these big, fancy spaceships.
They're like taller than us, the microscope.
They look like spaceships.
Yeah.
To be able to image these cool viruses. So we use those as well to make sure they're actually there. And we showed some images as examples of those, and there's lots more on the interactive website as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what's next for virus hunting? What are you guys going to go do after you leave here? What science are you going to go do?
So we are currently, like I said, at the end, we are currently looking for viruses right now in Carenia brevis, which is that dinoflagellate that causes red tide. We're also looking for viruses in seagrasses right now and other aquatic vegetation in the springs. And just we're always searching for new projects. So.
And the big thing is sometimes, especially for seawater, we find a lot of viruses, but we don't actually know who they're even infecting. So a big question next for us is to figure out, okay, we found a new virus, but who is actually its host? Because that'll give us a better idea of what they're actually doing in the environment. If we know who they're infecting, we kind of know what they're doing.
Yeah, so we could take a water sample anywhere and look for viruses in it. Anywhere in the whole world, but we're specifically looking in the ocean because we are at the College of Marine Science.
Awesome. I think we have one more question, and if any of the other presenters are on here, if you can close your screen, that would be great. One more question. Do we spread or put viruses in the water?
Yeah, for sure. When you go swimming, sometimes we have to be careful because we definitely get contamination from human viruses. So that's always something to look out for. But yeah, we just by swimming in the water, but also because, our wastewater that comes off of the land and stuff, all of these are human viruses that are washed away, and those go to the ocean as well. So
yeah. Even the plants and things that we eat, once they go through our systems and we go to the bathroom, then they go in that wastewater. And so those plant viruses can even be spread by us.
So sometimes in the ocean, you might find some viruses that belong to land plants, or peppers, for example, is a really big one that we follow.
We have lots of examples of different things you could be spreading around. But again, it's not usually something you should be worried about. It's just something that is normal for us.
Yeah. And one of those viruses that like us humans have, like they're passed in the water and stuff because they don't have anything else to infect in the ocean, because they're very specific either to us or to our bacteria. They kind of
they just hang out.
Yeah, they'll float away. They won't make more copies of themselves. So most of the viruses are going to be ocean viruses.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your virus hunting skills with us, and for all of the cool resources you shared. And I'm going to, like I said, be a virus hunter, hashtag virus hunter.
Awesome. I love that.
So get those things in, and thank you. Have a good day. We'll be back soon with the next presentation.
Thank you so much.